Welcome back to Afternoons Live. Derek Hanson filling in here on the Mighty 790 and 104.7 KFGO. It's a pleasure to have with us former Viking center and also Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Ravens. And he wants to be the next lieutenant governor in the state of Minnesota, running on the ticket with Dr. Scott Jensen. It's Matt Birk. Hello, Matt Birk. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you?
It's a pleasure. You know, you wouldn't remember me, but we've met before. Only was after a Vikings game in the locker room of the Metrodome, everyone shoulder to shoulder. That was always fun, wasn't it? Doing post-game stuff in that little locker room. I bet you wish you could have been in the U.S. Bank Stadium locker room nowadays. Well,
yeah, it's a little more spacious. I've been inside of that one, and what even made it more uncomfortable in that cramped Metrodome locker room is I probably just had a towel around my waist.
Exactly,
which is always kind of weird.
Awkward is really I think it's a way to put it, right? You're trying to get dressed and. And then and we're trying to talk to you about the game. Yeah, I never was very comfortable with that whole setting, to be quite frank. It's a little bit better in the new Vikings locker room. At least there's some space there. That is for sure.
Yeah, you know what? There's a few things I miss about football, but that is not one of them.
No. Well, you never were shy talking to the media, but it was just more of the awkwardness of the situation, correct?
Oh yeah. It's just. But that's just right. You got to get used to it. That's just the way it was.
Yeah, a little different when you and Dr. Jensen are out in rallies. There's plenty of space, but boy, the momentum. I look on social media. It certainly is out there. I'm sure you're feeling that energy, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why I decided to really get involved with Scott. I've been around his campaign for about a year, and I've never been super politically active or engaged. Right? I was playing football, and then I moved to Baltimore, and I moved to New York and worked in the league office. But for last year, being around Scott, he's a really impressive guy. He's what I refer to as a very high-functioning individual. And then going to his events, the thing was he's packing places, and most of the people there are just like me. They've never gone to anything like this. But I think they're concerned about the state of Minnesota. It's been a rough couple years, and they want to do something. They want to get involved in the process. And I think we can all agree, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or somewhere in between, that this is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a grassroots movement by somebody who is not a career politician, someone that hasn't climbed the ladder inside their party and been groomed and then has the machine behind them. This really is a movement of the people, and the energy's unbelievable. And that's why when Scott asked me if I'd like to be his running mate, I said yes.
It's interesting, Matt, because people have listened to me over the years. I've probably been more left leaning, but I've gotten to know Dr. Jensen a little bit. He was in Moorhead. And, I agreed with a lot of stuff he said. Some stuff I don't agree. That's kind of the nature of me. I guess I'm probably more, middle left more than anything else. And I think that's, to what you said there, even though you and I might not agree on all politics or whatever, he's about as genuine as anyone I've met. It's not to say I'm necessarily going to vote for you guys. I got to be sold first. But you know what I'm getting at? I think we've kind of lost that in politics, haven't we?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And, it's nobody's fault, and it's everybody's fault. But Scott is, I think he's very commonsensical. And I think Scott's very humble, and I think he really is driven by just wanting to do the right thing. I've heard from people he's too moderate. I've heard he's too conservative. I think, and everybody, we try to kind of pigeonhole people. That's sort of human nature. But I think Scott is just one of those real people who wasn't seeking this out, but kind of was encouraged by a lot of people to do it, and he took the plunge, and I do think he doesn't play politics, like you said. When you're in front of Scott talking to him, he's talking to you, and he's just trying to have a conversation and trying to do the right thing. And guess what, Derek? I don't agree with Scott on everything either, and we're running together. So I think that's I think that's healthy.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think, obviously he made a name for himself, questioning some of the data that was coming out with, COVID-19 early on. I mean, like really early on. You obviously, as you said, you haven't been in politics. Obviously, you made some news when you did not go to the White House after you won the Super Bowl with the Ravens with your pro-life stance or whatever. So you guys kind of have those two things. Are you guys trying to work on not being pigeonholed on those two things? Because I'm sure you're hearing about a lot of different topics that Minnesotans want to talk about.
Yeah, we are, and like I said, it is human nature to pigeonhole people. It makes us it makes us feel good. But I think both Scott and I mean, I'm relatively unknown politically, and Scott did one brief stint as a state senator. I think we are a little bit of a problem for people when they try to pin us down, and certainly, I think maybe the challenge for us is going to be Scott to go beyond COVID. And for me to go beyond pro-life or whatever people see. I mean, I don't know, but Scott and I aren't. We don't look at polls. We're not looking at a party to see how we should what our stances should be. I mean, both of us are just saying what we feel and what we think is right. And I think that authenticity is resonating with people because it is rare in politics to have that.
Matt Birk with us. Again, he wants to be the lieutenant governor in the state of Minnesota, former Minnesota Viking, running on the Scott Jensen ticket. What are you guys hearing the most about? I mean, there's a lot of issues in Minnesota. There's a huge surplus. Crime is certainly an issue. We mentioned, a lot of angst over restrictions the past 2 years. What are the people at the rallies telling you more than anything else?
Yeah, it's all of those, and it's education as well. Right now, education in Minnesota, it's just not good. I mean, Minneapolis school teachers are on strike. A lot of parents aren't happy. They got a little bit of a view inside the classroom during distance learning. Students, there's learning loss, and we have the widest achievement gap in the country. So education really isn't working for any of the stakeholders right now. But I think beyond that, I mean, the issues aren't a secret. But beyond that, I think what all Minnesotans are looking for is some leadership, and I think it's fresh leadership because not to say that the last 2 years were easy by any means, but when you go into these crisis situations, when there's a pandemic, when there's violent protests in your city and people are burning down a police precinct. That's when leaders need to step up and lead. And I think what we saw in Minnesota was the exact opposite. And decisions being made specifically with the pandemic, just doing what the Democratic Party was doing was not based in science or really common sense. And so I think it's bigger than the issues is just somebody that can lead during hard times that has shown that. And I think Scott and I have both shown that in our other careers.
Getting back to what you said about education, I think it's interesting because you mentioned Minneapolis. I actually have my cousin's wife is on strike right now. It's interesting. You look at the schools down there, and I think this being from the Twin Cities area, going to Cretin-Derham Hall. It's really a metro outstate thing because I think we feel like our schools are doing pretty good out here. Certainly some of the suburbs, but where it really matters is in St. Paul. Some of the inner city suburbs, closer to Minneapolis, St. Paul. That really is kind of a divide, a feast or famine thing going on. That's a tough thing to fix.
Well, no question. And so here's the thing, Derek. You're exactly right. It's totally different on the east side of St. Paul or North Minneapolis than it is, up in Moorhead or Edina. Okay, so here's the thing with education. There's no one size fits all. It's one size fits one. And, I mean, for years, public education is certainly important, and it's not an easy thing. But I think if you're saying, all throughout, an entire metro area, we're going to kind of have this same model for every single kid. I don't think that works. And I think what we just have to do with education, where we have to start, is pass every decision through a filter that says, what is best for the kid? It seems like that's kind of gotten lost a little bit. And I've been involved in education for 20 years with my foundation. I started my own school 3 years ago in Burnsville, and I think it's time we really look at the model and tweak it. And I think where it needs to go is we need to have more different types of schools for different types of kids.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess does that come into like voucher programs, charter schools, and all that? Because as a son of a public school teacher, I actually substitute teach myself, and as I said, left leaning. I'm not always big on that, but I think it's easier for me to say that in Barnesville, Minnesota, than it is to say that in Burnsville, Minnesota. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that is part of the equation, and because I think that's what's going to be best for kids and families. I believe that the home is the primary educator of our kids, and so parents need to be able to be empowered to be able to make those decisions. But let me say, I'm not blaming public school teachers. You look at our society. The nuclear family is not what it once was. Especially in the inner city, teachers. I think they just want to teach, right? They just want to connect with these kids and teach. Well, you're getting kids that are coming from less than ideal home situations. So parents have to be, or teachers rather, have to be almost be parents to these kids in a lot of cases. We know the kids are growing up in this digital world where a lot of them are stressed or depressed, and they're but they're all social media obsessed. We know the mental health of our kids is not very good. So we're at the end of the day, we're asking way too much of public school teachers to fill a lot of gaps that historically they haven't had to. And so again, I think that's why I think it's why we really have to take a hard look at the entire model and make some serious adjustments, because the world is a lot different than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Well, my final thing for you, Matt Birk, is you're going to come up to a spring and summer, going to a lot of parades, a lot of different things. And what I want to find out from you as we get closer and closer to the campaign, are they going to ask you more about politics and policy? Are they going to ask you more, do you think the Vikings should have kept Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, those. I think for a lot of people, those two things are equally important, right? And the good news is, I guess both of them we're gonna find out this fall, right? We're gonna find out if Kirk Cousins ain't good. We're gonna find out the people of Minnesota want Scott Jensen and Matt Birk in the governor's seat.
I'm guessing you get asked about that quite a bit, though, right? Being a former center, having played with some pretty good quarterbacks yourself.
Oh, all the time, wherever I go. Minnesota loves the Vikings, and I've been a Vikings fan my entire life, except for the 4 years I played in Baltimore. And it's one of these years it's going to happen. That's all I can say. I hope it's soon, but I just know, because I'm an economics guy. The law of averages, one is sooner or later it's going to happen for us.
Well, I'm sure. I guess to wrap it up is, I'm sure you want to talk about your economics and part of it with budgets and all that, and not just be thought of as a Minnesota Viking, right? That's trying to get into. We've had this quite a bit with Al Franken and Jesse Ventura, but I think I'm guessing guys like you want to be more than that too.
Well, yeah. Listen, I played football. It wasn't all I did. It's not who I am. I've been retired for 9 years. I've done a lot of things business wise. First of all, when I played, I was a union rep, and then after my career, I went and worked in management at the league office. I've started a handful of businesses. I kind of am intellectually curious about business and economics. That's why I majored in it in college, and I've had a lot of great experiences the 9 years since I retired that I think can help me serve and be a good lieutenant governor.
Very good. Matt Birk, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. Good luck. Safe travels in all your travels throughout the spring and summer, and certainly into the fall campaign season. And I guess you got to win the Republican nomination anyway, but there's certainly a lot of momentum there. I hope to talk to you again soon. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Derek. Matt Birk, former center for the Minnesota Vikings and the Baltimore Ravens, won a Super Bowl, the blackout game down in New Orleans against San Francisco. Ray Lewis's last game, and he wants to be the lieutenant governor of the great state of Minnesota.